You're listening to Cards to the Moon, a podcast about trading cards from both a collector and investor perspective. We hope you'll stick around for the ride as we take a deep dive into the state of the hobby, share some hot takes, hopefully some useful advice, and fun stories along the way. Hey guys, welcome to Cards to the Moon. This is episode 85. My name is Clark from 5 Card Guys on Instagram, and with me as always is Hyung of Integrity Sports Cards and John, who is Trade You at Recess. All right, off the top, the NHL season, believe it or not, is only a week away, so I thought I'd throw this over to John first, our resident hockey guy on this podcast, and ask him, which rookies are you looking out for as potential card investments? And are there any other players you think could take the next step up and make a bigger splash in the hobby in terms of card value? So what do you think?
Well, it goes without saying, I think guys like McDavid, Ovechkin, Crosby, Matthews is a no-brainer in terms of investment, especially Nick McDavid. If you don't have McDavid, go out and get him. He's a generational star. I think he is pretty protected by he's clean as a whistle. He's not an outlandish. Right. So you're not going to see him in any scandals. You're probably not going to see him on any drug tests or anything like that. Other than maybe like a catastrophic injury, for the most part, I think your investment with McDavid would be fine. But other than those guys, I picked 4. Okay. So I generally like obviously pick guys that had some hype and lost it, but have that pedigree. You know, we always talk about in baseball, you want to kind of pick the player that has the pedigree before, and for whatever reason kind of got lost in the shuffle, and he has an opportunity to come back. So this one, the first one, might not be a popular opinion, but I'm not going to say it's like a great investment, but you might be able to throw some money at it. And for me, it's Patrik Laine. Former number 2 overall. He had a sneaky good season last year, 56 points in 56 games played. I could see him scoring kind of like in the 80, 90 point mark with like up to 40 goals. He seemed to have gelled well in the new system in Columbus. And let's not forget Johnny Gaudreau, who was an assist machine, just joined the fold. And they are looking pretty dynamite in preseason so far. So I'm going to pick Laine as a bit of a sleeper superstar candidate back to like a, hopefully become like an all-star player. Okay. So I like Laine. Another sort of forgotten number 1 pick overall. I wouldn't say he's that cheap, but I think he's worth a flyer, and that's Jack Hughes.
You love Jack Hughes.
Yeah. I think Jack Hughes is a good one. He, another sneak, he was kind of injured last year. He is a bit injury prone. He hasn't been able to kind of uphold a regular season yet. But last year he had 49 games. He had 56 points, right? So we're talking over 100 points, extrapolated into like an 82 game season. So I'm going to say Jack Hughes. He's got huge upside. He's a bit of a sleeper in terms of like 100 point getter. So he's on that list for me. Brady Tkachuk. I talked about him before. I really like Brady Tkachuk. He's kind of stuck. He got 67 points in 79 games last year, 117 penalty minutes. So he's a bit of a rough and tumble kid. I like him because of the new look Senators. I think Tkachuk can now kind of start to creep into the 80, 85 point mark while still being rough and tumble. So for Tkachuk, I think he's going to get noticed. I think he's going to become a top 5 category league 1-year hockey, like a fantasy player. So I think in fantasy leagues in the future, if not already, I don't know. Like I don't join any 1-year leagues. I'm only in like a dynasty league. But in those 1-year multi-category leagues, I think Tkachuk, he's already a monster. But if he starts putting up, 40 goals, 80 points, he is going to be a top 5 fantasy staple. So I think he's going to start to get noticed, both in the real world and fantasy world. So I like him as an investment. And the last one, this isn't necessarily a sleeper, but the hype wasn't as crazy as it should have been as Cole Caulfield. I think this kid has the ability to compete year in, year out for the Maurice Richard Maurice Richard trophy, most goals in the league. And, goals, home runs, that's all the sexy stuff that you want to see, right? So I think Cole Caulfield, if he gets to the point where I believe he's going to have a 40-goal season, and if he flirts with always being, in the mix to win that trophy, I think he's going to be very, very relevant and have could be a strong investment. So I like Cole Caulfield. So those are my four picks.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for me, hockey. One thing that I've learned this year, I guess not learned this year, but I'm seeing repetitive patterns, especially from the baseball and basketball markets, and you're going to see it in the football markets, is similar stories where, I look at the young studs that we always love because they're the up and comings, the rookie chase, the release chase, and it really, I guess, just seeing what happened with baseball in terms of the younger stars and the volatility it has and how prices need to come down. I really believe that, it's no different with hockey. Going into the season, there's going to be a lot of hype around the young stars of the game, but I truly believe it's the value shopping that you're going to really win on kind of in the short to long term, because guys like Cole Caulfield, of course, very, very exciting, but his prices were higher just because he was the chase of that year. And as his if he has a good season, that's kind of expected. It's going to keep those prices, but are those prices already high to begin with? And do they have room to come down? So stuff like that where, I've seen it in baseball, I've seen it in basketball, I expect it in hockey. So for me, I'm looking at it more of a, like we talked about in the early shows, guys like Sidney Crosby, guys who are kind of disrespected almost because, everybody kind of forgot about them. But you look at, the guys like Albert Pujols in baseball and guys who are leaving a legendary impact on the game. They're starting to, people are starting to say, you know what, this has way more value down the road. I see this more of a sound investment. So if I'm gambling on young stars, it's going to be like the McDavids, the Leon Draisaitl's, guys that are A-type superstars. And for that reason, you look at guys like, Bo Bichette, Jordan Alvarez, and all these other guys that are studs, but their prices were astronomical. I wouldn't say astronomical, but they get no love because it's kind of they're not doing enough for the market to say, you know what, I believe that you're worth more. So it's kind of, that's what I'm seeing common with other sports. So during this kind of bear market when everybody's chasing, I think a good approach to this is kind of go back to the blue chip stocks, right? And go after the future watch autos of a Sidney Crosby, where it's very affordable in my opinion compared to an Austin Matthews or even a McDavid, right? So I'm in the lines of kind of looking for the veteran, even guys like Malkin, right? Very, very cheap relative to the younger stars, right? So I'm doing the same with baseball. My strategy doesn't change with hockey as well. So if I'm starting to go hockey, it's more of the long-term game. So yeah, that's the way I kind of see it all. But yeah, I agree with John. I'm sure he knows a lot of hockey, and if you're into kind of the who's gonna have the big season and who's cheap relatively to that, and kind of I'm going to roll the dice here, I'm all for it.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%, Hyung. I'm going after the bigger names. I feel like I'm running out of time to get a McDavid while it's low, in terms of bear market. Right. And I monitor prices every day. I'm still can't pull the trigger. But I'm itching to do it for one of these big generational stars McDavid, Matthews even. But at the same time, I like John's choices because it depends on your timeline too, right? Right. And also I was just looking at some of these prices for the players that John mentioned, like Jack Hughes and Brady Tkachuk, and who's the first guy?
Patrick Laine.
Patrick Laine, yeah, and their SP authentic future autos are cheap, $200. It's not even a huge risk. and if they have a great season, and I love that move of getting like guys that have pedigree, had an off year, but could come back if they're fully healthy, flirt with 80, 90, 100 points even. I love that kind of play, and getting it for 150, 200 for those, future watch auto cards. That's like, it's kind of like fantasy. You buy them, invest in them, and you just hope for the best that they play well, right. So you can flip them at the end of the season, right? But so definitely different strategies you can take going into the hockey season. But yeah, I like it. A couple of other players that I like, and I'm on repeat with saying these, like Tarasenko. It's like $125 for a SP Authentic Future Watch Auto, right. And of course Panarin. Johnny and I and Hyung, we all love Panarin. I could have used him for this segment coming up. I'll introduce in a bit, but yeah, just needs to have more respect on his name
for sure.
All right, John, thanks for that. And yeah, hockey season. I can't wait to have that start. And the one good thing about the fall sports card expo we talked about in our Friday episode is that we got hockey and basketball starting again, so there's a lot of volatility with those cards too, right? So that kind of makes it fun as well, going to those card shows. More deals to be had when sports are in season. Yeah, so all right, with that, let's move on to our next segment we call Hobby Headlines. Okay, just like I talked about like a few seconds ago, I actually wanted to revisit our discussion we did in one of our earlier podcast episodes. I think it was episode 5 about why certain players get no hobby love. And that's what I was alluding to when I was talking about Panarin. But for example, we talked about other players in baseball. Mookie Betts still doesn't get the respect he deserves in the hobby. If you didn't notice, he's killing it again. 35 homers. It's personal best, 112 runs, 12 steals. Hyung talks about this guy a lot. Yordan Alvarez, no hobby love for that guy. And he mashes every year that he's been in the league. If you go to basketball, we talked about Dame Lillard. For some reason, he's not heavily sought after in the hobby. And we even talked about whole sets like Top Stadium Club getting no hobby love. Right. Although the photography on their cards are amazing and they have, really nice on-card autos. So I was thinking for this episode, since we didn't do this in a long time, maybe we can do another round of naming players, cards, or sets that get no hobby love and should definitely get more attention in our humble opinion. So who wants to lead off? Who's got something in their head?
I'll start off. For me, Nolan Arenado, like this guy just every single year is just doing damage, has 55 plus WAR. He's 31. To me, it's like his card prices are so cheap that people said, well, he was in Colorado, so ball travels further. But with St. Louis, he's having season after season. He's killing it, and he's fun to watch. Every night he's doing something defensively that is just jaw dropping. Like one of the best defensive players that ever played the game, which is a strong statement. And that's Nolan Arenado, and this is like, obviously, like everybody doesn't love him, but I think he's so underrated in terms of the hobby for what he's done. And guys, obviously, I've said this before, guys like Machado, look at like the year he's having, and another 100 RBI season, 30 plus home runs. He's flirting with 300 average, and he's 29 years old. He has a 50 plus WAR at 29 years old. And, which crazy. In my opinion, like if his pace is he's going to reach potentially 100. And to me, that'll get him in the Hall of Fame, no problem, based on his age. So, like guys like these where, people don't kind of react until Albert Pujols, for instance, hits the 700 and then his prices go bonkers. So these are guys that are working up to those legendary status that if you could get in cheap and you don't mind holding until they end up kind of getting the love they deserve. There's going to be a point in time where they get the love is my whole point. Other than like guys like Yordan, on the other hand, he has to do it for like 10 more years before he gets the love, right? So I'm going to lean more towards kind of like those veteran guys that kind of stay under the radar. And I'm even going to throw Ichiro in there. Okay, because with all the Albert Pujols love and Ichiro's, just kind of like under the radar, but this guy was incredible, and what he's done for baseball, even overseas, and kind of like the name he's made for himself. I think he's that type of Hall of Famer that would be like astronomical in terms of pricing when he does get the hobby love, right? So those are kind of three names that I think are super, super underrated. And I think there's a great buying opportunity in the next, few months. And if you don't mind holding, I think there will be solid investments in the future, especially those Bowman Chrome like colored that are actually affordable right now. So
I love that. Yeah, I love those choices. I just was checking on some of the prices as you were naming them. Nolan Arenado, Bowman Chrome, first auto, BGS 9510, sold just recently for under 700, 675. Wow. Manny Machado, that was on my list as well. Like, he just does not get the respect he deserves. His Bowman Chrome True Gem, first auto, sold for, I think, let me just double check, because I can't believe my eyes. $338.
Ridiculous. Yeah.
True gem.
I'm going to buy one right now, actually. That
is so crazy.
I'll be silent for a couple minutes.
Yeah. Here's the thing, though. Like, with this segment, and then I'll turn it to John, but like, it's not even a buy now because of the fact that it gets no hobby love, for whatever reason, right? Unless you have such a strong conviction that it's going to be due at some point. Like, I could see the Machado play working out when he hits 100 WAR by the time his career is over, and everyone's going to say, why is this card so cheap? But it might take a while to get there. You got to be patient with these cards that get no hobby love. Anyway, I like those choices. Johnny, you got some?
I do. I'm going to stick with hockey. Give hockey a bit of a spotlight this episode. Nice. Your favorite, the number one I'm going to mention right now is your favorite washed up player, Nikita Kucherov. 47 games played, 69 points. Not many people may realize this, but he was number 2 in points per game last year in the NHL.
Wow. Yeah.
I wouldn't say he's like completely disrespected. He is somewhat respected, but I think he is an all-world talent, and I think it's a bit of a shame. I don't think he has a future watch, so it's just the young guns. And to be honest, I don't think he has many rookies. So I think if there was ever, how we kind of say, let's move off base and young guns and try to go for future watch and stuff. I think if there's ever a player to go for the young guns, first and foremost, it's going to be Nikita Kucherov. So Kucherov for me in hockey. One guy that for me I think is a stud that gets completely disrespected is Aleksander Barkov, because he's in Florida, bit of a sleepy town. He's top 10 in points per game. He I don't have his stats in front of me, but let me see here. He had like 88 points in 69 games or something like that. Like he killed it last year. He just missed like a handful of games. He is a very much disrespected superstar stud in the hobby space. I think you can get his future watch for like, they don't come often, but if they were to come out on auction, I think they go for like 450, 550, something in that range.
Wow. Okay.
Maybe 600 maximum. It's really cheap. So I like Barkov. I have 2 other names in hockey that I wouldn't really call I'm not going to make like an investment. Like don't go out and buy these guys. I'm just going to mention them because they are completely disrespected as all-star players. One is Mark Scheifele. So I think this is kind of like that Vladimir Tarasenko territory, like superstar stud that just doesn't even get looks. So I think you can get his future watch for like $100. Mark Scheifele, I think, is a stud. And Mika Zibanejad, I don't know, for whatever reason, the kid is putting up, point per game for the last like 5-6 years. Zero love. I think you could get his future watch for under 150 or something like that. So those 2 guys, I'm not going to really recommend. They're kind of like Lillard, just like so disrespected that I don't see the tide turning for them. So I'm not going to recommend to go and buy it. But I just wanted to make the point that these guys are studs that just absolutely get no looks.
It's true. Zibanejad, like, only fantasy hockey players will know how much of a stud he is.
Right, yeah.
But no one else. when you actually see his production, right? But yeah, no, good choices too. I was looking up those prices as well. Like Kucherov's Young Guns PSA 10 last sold a couple weeks ago for $460.
Oh man, I'm actually tempted now.
And then the Barkov SP Authentic Future Watch Auto PSA 10 sold for $398.
Did it really? Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So yeah, it's cheap.
There we go.
Yeah, great choices. I already mentioned my one, Manny Machado, zero respect, and such a great player. And then I'm going to go to football just to mix things up a little bit. And he's kind of in the spotlight now, but if you look at his Prizm base, and I think there's only less than 700 because it's in the 2018 Panini Prizm set, which didn't have as much of a higher count. Lamar Jackson, Baltimore Ravens QB,
nice.
Just ridiculous this year.
Good
and
choice.
I've been wrong a lot with my football choices, but I believe Lamar was one of my right ones, correct ones early this season. I'm like, Lamar, I think he's going to have a good bounce back.
Right.
People forgot about him after his 2019 MVP season,
right.
And it shows in the hobby price. It just dipped so hard, and then just a downward trend in 2020, 2021, 2022, this year, right? And then first 3 weeks, like leading the league in touchdowns, 2 rushing touchdowns. Like everyone knows he can run. Right. People make fun of him, saying that he's a running back that can throw. You know what I mean? Like he's got that build, but ridiculous. He could do it all. And I just looked at his Prizm base, like it's not moving at all. And his silvers down relatively speaking. Like it's a 2018 silver that was really hard to come by, kind of like the Josh Allen. That's why it's already inflated. So it's over 5K, but still, it sold for almost twice as much during his MVP season, but no movement on that as well. So Lamar Jackson, if people want to get in, just get his Prizm base. I'm sure there's going to be opportunity at some point when the Ravens go far into the playoffs, in my opinion.
Right.
And
didn't he have like an MVP season last year too? Like I think he was pretty stunted last year, right?
That's what I mean. If he did, like, no hobby love.
Yeah, exactly.
no
it shows
how
much
talking
people
about
know
it.
That. Yeah.
It was all Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes stealing the spotlight. But the odds guys are kind of paying attention a little bit. I think his odds to win the MVP jumped to third. He's tied essentially with Jalen Hurts, who's getting a lot of headlines these days.
Right.
And of course, Mahomes is second and Josh Allen is first in that race. All right. Hopefully we persuaded some of our listeners to show some hobby love for some of the players we just mentioned, and it's always fun to, there's certain things that it kind of goes really close hand in hand with our hobby logic segment, where it just doesn't make sense for some of these guys to be priced so low, but for whatever reason they are. And I thought they were deserving of a segment, at least in our podcast, to give them a shout out. And hopefully, you guys out there will start looking into their cards and show some respect. All right, let's go to our next segment. We're calling Overrated, Underrated. We've done this one before, but for this episode, we're going to focus on non-rookie cards. Okay, so I'm going to give you guys 4 types of non-rookie cards, and you tell me if you think it's overrated or underrated and why. All right, so the first type of card, second-year cards of players. Not their rookie cards, but their second-year cards. Overrated or underrated?
I'm going to say underrated, especially for the superstars. Probably overrated for the normal peeps, but
yeah,
I think it's underrated play because if you look at past kind of like superstars, if you're talking even your Steph Curry's, your LeBron James, you look at past history and it'll kind of tell you where prices are in terms of even second year players, especially when you're holding on to like pretty rare cards, numbered cards, I think that's where the game is. It's not really kind of like the base game where things really work out for you in your favor when you're investing in that sense. But I think it's underrated, and because I think right now, like a second year card of, you know, a superstar, let's just say like a Juan Soto or like you know, guys that, you know, are incredible, even superstars like Connor McDavid, you know, I think eventually those numbered cards are gonna pop, right? Especially when people are priced out of the rookies, especially second year autos, maybe potentially, maybe Luka. People are priced out of a Luka auto. A second year option is great. I think over time they're gonna hold great value and, you know, demand the value as well as they kind of cement their legacy, right? So I'm gonna say underrated for superstar players.
Cool.
I like that. I completely agree with that. I think it is, it's kind of 50-50. It's underrated for the big studs, and I think, I don't even want to say 2017, but I'm just going to say pre-2017, I'll say underrated. Super ultra modern, I don't know what the category is of whatever 2018, 2019 forward. Yeah. Anything super ultra modern, second year cards, trash. don't touch it, because I think there's just too much print, and I think anything right now will be trash. But I think some of the older guys, when you're looking at in basketball, I'm just thinking of basketball off the top of my head, Curry, Giannis, KD, of some of the guys that are playing right now, LeBron, second year cards for those guys, really underrated. So yeah.
Right. Yeah, no, I like the nuance of this first overrated underrated card. I'm going to agree with you. Like, I think, yeah, for me too, the second year cards are stud players, but rare cards like Hyung was talking about, you know, I think they're definitely underrated. But I also agree with what John's saying, the more modern cards, like the Luka, his second year rare cards, I think it's a bit, because of the print runs, right? It's just, compared to the older cards, like it's just, a lot more cards were printed in the last few years because of the hobby hype, of course. But yeah, so it depends. But generally speaking, stud, rare cards, I would say it's underrated. Everything else overrated. Okay, next one. First year cards of players on their new teams. So if a player got traded, their card, like a Tom Brady first year card with the Bucks, is an example. What do you think?
I'm going to say overrated. I think that's something more of a hobbyist person would care about, to be honest. And for instance, I look at even guys like Mookie Betts, you know, someone who's played, you know, with Boston his whole career, and then makes a huge jump to a big time team in LA in 2020. And I look at like Mookie Betts cards, and it's like, well, like, do I even want this card? Like, it's not. And Kawhi in Toronto uniform is another one. It's popular with us, but then I always want to pull the trigger. I'm like, no, why am I buying this? Like, this is ridiculous. I don't want this card, right? Because he has a Toronto uniform. Like, yeah, you know what I mean. So I think it's slightly overrated, to be honest, unless it's your PC player where you're, you know, it's such a big move. Like, I don't see the value in you know, having the first year of a different team. You know, I think there's more value in kind of like the rookies and obviously like second year cards. So I'm going to say overrated in this case.
Okay.
I'm going to agree. I actually was a bit siding with underrated, but Hyung convinced me. I think honestly, I think the first year cards of players, I feel like it's the lure of, you fall to the trap of Brady, right? Brady on the Bucks, absolutely, I love it. Like, I want the Bucks Prizm card in a red, or you know, like that color match. Like, it's awesome. Like, I want it as a collector. But Brady is such an anomaly, right? We're talking like the greatest of all time, and he won with that team. Like, all of the stars aligned for that particular one. And I think all the subsequent, you know, players on new teams cards, Kawhi a bit different because it's sort of a PC, but at the same, he won too, right? So I think it's a little bit different, but I mean, you know, Mookie won with the Dodgers, right?
Right.
And it didn't really move anything. So I'm sure in LA, those Mookie LA cards, big time, just like it is in here in Toronto, but nobody else outside probably really cares. So I think it's a little bit, yeah, it's a little bit overrated. I think people are trying to make something of it. But really, it's only those particular markets that probably like it from a PC perspective. And outside of that, in terms of investment, I don't know. I think you're kind of trying to chase that sort of Tom Brady Bucks thing, but that is on a level of its own. Like that's something you just can't achieve in any other player. So,
yeah, it's gonna be a sweep. But I do like the It's funny, the ones that you guys all mentioned, Kawhi, Brady, Mookie, guys that had success on their new teams, their first year. Like, I think there's something to it, and I'll add though, it's got to be rare. It's got to be numbered. It's got to be autographed.
Right.
Now, it can't be just their base. It can't be a Mookie base Dodgers in his Dodgers uniform card. If it was like a blue, I don't even know if this exists, but blue refractor Dodgers of Mookie. I might be interested in that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then he played well. I mean, they won the championship with Mookie there. Same thing with Kawhi. A nice autographed Raptors uniform card. Yeah, and of course Brady. When I thought of this card, I was really thinking about LeBron James and the Miami Heat. When he won there, his silver prism is like ridiculous. Like it costs a lot, and because it's rare as well. So I think if it meets those conditions, underrated, but everything else overrated.
Right.
Okay, let's go to the third one. First year cards of a new set. So this is more limited, but I was thinking 2012 Prizm basketball. Anyone that came out of that set, like a Steph Curry, it wasn't their rookie year, but it's the first Prizm basketball set. Anything like that.
Man, for 2012, it's different. I'm going to say 2012 is underrated. But when you say first year cards of new set, I think that has to be like asterisks, because it only applies to very, very few sets. And with the example you said was 2012 Prizm. So if we're talking 2012 Prizm, I think underrated. Right. I think it was a big set for collectors. I think it's a super low print run. There was a great class, even if they weren't rookies. They were first Prizm cards for a lot of people. With the absence of Topps Chrome, like there's so many other, I think, things that make it more valuable in the long run. And that's one of the things that we've always left with the hobby, especially in the basketball side, is 2012 Prizm is the set, right? And for me, that's kind of like the OG Prizm. And I think that set in particular is underrated, but I'm not going to say first year cards of new set, like let's just say a new,
Panini Flux, Panini Absolute.
Yeah. I'm going to pass on that, a hard pass on that. So yeah, you read my mind exactly.
Okay.
What about photogenic, like stadium?
Photogenic? That's stadium. Ooh. Yeah. Like stuff like that.
Nice,
like
man. They look nice.
They look nice, but like at the end of the day, like think of it as an investment, like perspective, right? And we know that 2012 Prizm, if there's gonna be any example, it's gonna be 2012. No other set deserves whether, because this is what we're talking. This is the kind of like example, the prime example of. Like, if you're liking other sets and not 2012 Prizm, then something's wrong with you. You know what I mean? Because that's like the OG. If in this case, yeah.
Yeah. True.
So.
Right. First year cards of new sets. I'm gonna say it's overrated. I think there are particular. I feel like it's being forced, right? Like I think with new sets coming out, it's similar to the first year cards of new players on new teams. I think the benchmark is like Tom Brady and the Bucks, and people are trying to force that on a lot of cards. So it's similar here. I think there are a handful of super iconic sets: 86 Fleer, 2012 Prizm, 96 Topps Chrome. I'm just thinking of basketball right now. There's obviously in other sports too. And I think because of how popular those sets are, and the fact, especially like something like 86 Fleer, where it's tough to even get some really good graded cards, there are some hardcore collectors that are collecting the entire sets in PSA 10s or PSA 9s or whatever it is. It just brings this sort of like Ooh, like what's the next big thing? Like let's chase to try and create or try and, fabricate a new set that's going to be the next it set. And I think it's just being too forced on. So other than those handful of like iconic sets, I'm going to say overrated. I think those just happened organically. And obviously there are some GOAT players in there to make it something special. But I think to try and predict what is going to be that next crazy iconic set, I don't know, man. Like there's no point of trying to chase that or trying to invest in something like that. I don't think it's something to go after. So I'm going to say overrated.
Okay. Guys, the Jamorant Panini Flux, it's going to be something. It's going to be amazing in 10 years. Yeah, there's such few and far between these iconic sets. So I'm not going to belabor this point and agree with you guys. Overrated. All right, this one's almost the flip of what we just talked about. The last year cards of sports card sets. I'm thinking 2008, 2009 Topps Chrome basketball. Overrated or underrated?
I guess it would be the same thing that we're talking about, but the opposite. Are you talking about that set in particular, or are you just saying last year cards of sport card sets of whatever it might be?
Sure. You know what? Because we argue that it's it depends on a few sets. Let's just make this a little
Generic?
bit more. No. Let's the other way, because I think it's going to be a sweep again, right? We're just going to say it's overrated for our sets. But how about this particular set, the last year cards of the 2008-9, Topps Chrome basketball.
2008-9.
I'm gonna say,
is that the Kobe LeBron? Is that like the Stadium Club style Topps Chrome?
That's right.
Yeah.
I
wouldn't say it's underrated. This one's a little tougher for me, but I'm gonna go with. I'm gonna go with underrated for that particular set, because I feel like that's an iconic set. It's already established. Topps Chrome kind of disappeared, and then now we're gonna, I guess, get it back again. But that was a big set. Like that was a big year. I think that's gonna be iconic, just if we're talking specifically this set. So I'm gonna say underrated, even though it's a strong set. Like there's some strong sales on particular cards, but I think there's a lot more value in other players in that set as well, just because the set has been so popular. So I'm gonna say slightly underrated, but it still gets a lot of love. So
okay, we get it.
Underrated all the way. I think that is the one set that is already creeping into iconic status, but it should be all the way iconic status. I get it doesn't have big rookies that year, so that's something that is really kind of weighing down the popularity of the set, but it is one of the nicest sets of Topps Chrome ever, period. I think it's very underrated. I personally prefer that set, and this is probably a huge unpopular opinion, but I think that set should be more iconic than the 2012 Prizm. Just my opinion.
Hot take.
But I think it's hot take. I think it's very underrated in terms of the stratosphere of iconic sets.
Yeah. I was just reading the description of this set in Cardboard Connection, and they make reference to the 2008-09 Topps Chrome Basketball was a final standalone set for the popular card brand, as Panini soon took over to control of the exclusive NBA card license. So so that's what makes it sought after, at least. But I'm going to say overrated, because it's actually a point that Hyung made, that with Fanatics getting the Topps company back, or with Fanatics taking over Topps, and just we're kind of all expecting Topps Chrome Basketball to come back, it kind of diminishes, in my opinion, just the I thought this was a sneaky play for the longest time. People forget the 08-09 was the last Chrome Basketball, but if it's making a comeback, it's of course, it's not going to have the same kind of iconic cards. Whenever the 23, 24, 24, 25 Chrome basketball, whenever that comes out. But I think it diminishes the 08, 09 just a little bit. And like you said, John, like there are no outstanding rookies in that set. Like the ones I want are the Chalk Toss by LeBron, and obviously the Kobe LeBron, discarding that card as well. But even now, I'm like, I'm kind of like, I'm always, it's still on my watch list, but I deprioritized it on my watch list. Like there's other cards I want more of it. So I'm going to just be the contrarian in this case and say slightly overrated.
I feel like you're putting too much stock into the fact that it's the last Topps Chrome basketball set. I think for me, that has nothing to do why that
okay.
set is iconic. It has everything to do with the imagery and the photos. I could care less if it's the last Topps. If like somebody were to say this is going to be the last Prizm set ever because Prizm is no longer going to be, I could care less. I think most people would be like, who cares, right? So I think for people that think it's of value or a sneaky play, no offense, Clark, but if you're thinking that it's a sneaky play because it's the last of the Topps Chrome set, probably I don't think that's where you should look at. This set is underrated because of how nice the actual set is. The photos, everything. They went through some serious effort to put this set together. And I think for that reason, it's very underrated. But yeah.
That's fair. All right. Agree to disagree.
Yeah.
All right.
Just before we go into the next segment, I just want to just get on the same page. So 2008, you're talking about like the Chalk Toss.
Yeah.
So what about 2009? You're saying that 08, 09? Or because 2009, there was a 09, was it 2010? There was 09, 010 Topps Chrome.
Was that the those cards were inserted?
Were they inserted?
Remember? I feel like that was an inserted. The Topps Chrome was an
Currier
insert
was the
into like
the insert into Topps paper that we found out.
Right.
Oh, okay, and then same with the Durant. They have a 09, 010 like Topps Chrome as well. I believe so. Those are all Topps inserts from paper.
I'm pretty sure, yeah, because
okay. Because there's like DeMar DeRozan, there's James Harden in 09.
Also on Cardboard Connection, it says although there was also a 2009-10 Topps Chrome basketball series, it came as an insert in the flagship Topps NBA product for 09-10.
Okay, perfect. Okay,
yeah.
Just wanted to make it clear.
Yeah. No, it's good clarification because I think we just found that out. I can't remember who was it Refractor Jones that mentioned it, but someone mentioned it,
right. Okay.
or Leon actually.
Leon.
Yeah,
Leon. That's right.
Yeah, I remember that, and I was didn't know until then. But good clarification. All right. That was a kind of a fun discussion. We'll always bring back the overrated, underrated series, and I'll think of another category we can do this with. Okay, now let's move on to our last weekly segment we call Pick One. And if you're a first-time listener, this is when each of us puts up two cards or two athletes or two sets against each other, and then we all debate which one we would rather invest in. All right, and we'll start with Hyung as usual.
All right, we're going to baseball as usual. We're going to go with Aaron Judge because he hit his number 61 tonight. We're going to go with his 2013 Bowman Chrome. Aaron Judge Auto, BGS 9.5, a True Gem, last sold for $36.50 on eBay. Okay, it might have increased actually as of today, right. But we'll just say $36.50 for the sake of kind of like the comparison. Versus a 2018 Bowman Chrome, hitting version of Shohei Ohtani Auto, a BGS 9.5 recently sold for $4K. That's the hitting image, right? So we talking about. Technically, that's not Ohtani's first Chrome, but it is his hitting image from Bowman Chrome, and that last sold for $4K. So $36.50 versus $4K in terms of price. Are you going with Judge, a Judge Auto, or Shohei Auto?
So the hitting auto is the one in the red jersey. That one,
in the red jersey, right? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I think the pitching one is a little more, so I used more of a kind of like the cheaper Ohtani auto because his pitching one's way more. I think it would have been a lot easier for you guys to decide, but if we're talking apples to apples in terms of price.
Yeah. I'm going to go with, oh man, I love Shohei. But I'm going to go with the 2013 Judge because I'm a purist when it comes to that. You know, like the pitching one I consider the one to get for Shohei. And I would just want to save up a little bit more to get that one rather than like any kind of Shohei rookie auto, although the hitting one does look nice. And it's the same thing with Judge. Like that 2013 Judge is the Bowman Chrome auto card you want if you're collecting Bowman Chrome first autos, right?
Right.
For Judge. So I'm going to go with Judge for that reason.
Oh, nice. What about you, Jenny?
This one is tough. This one is tough. Conventional wisdom would clearly tell me to pick the buy low versus the buy high. So I am ultimately going to pick Shohei. But I will say this whole Judge hype FOMO thing is probably getting pretty real with, like I mentioned, collectors like me. Collectors like who aren't Judge fans, aren't Yankee fans, sitting on the outside always thinking that Tatis, Vladdy, Soto, those were the guys, right? A Judge is not a part of that group. And I think if Judge sneaks into that group, especially if he starts blasting 55 plus home runs from here on in for the next 2-3 years, like that card could go places. I'm not gonna lie, that card could really go places. So it tempts me because like I don't know how, like, because Shohei's as great as he is and as much like WAR he's gonna continually produce year in and year out. If he's not hitting 50 home runs or not doing something spectacular, I think we're going to see kind of like incremental slow growth, where somebody like Judge, I feel like his card could really explode. So 50-50, but just for the fact that buy low, sell high concept, I have to pick the Shohei here. But man, am I tempted for the first time ever to pick the Judge. I will say.
That's a little bit of FOMO.
A little bit of FOMO.
That's a little bit of FOMO.
FOMO level check. Yeah.
I know.
Oh man, this one's
Hyung's a tiebreaker.
Frick. Judge. I just looked at Judge's stats. They're freaking incredible. Here's the thing with Judge. Here's an interesting fact. If Judge hits 50 home runs every year for the next 10 years, he'll be 40 years old and he'll have 718 home runs. I brought that up because that's how ridiculous Pujols is. Like,
right.
You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah.
Judge has to hit 50. He's 30 years old right now. He plays for another 10 years. He hits 50 home runs a year, every year for the next 10 years. He will just barely surpass Albert Pujols. Right? So for me, that's like, obviously 700 is like ridiculous. Like 500 plus will get you into the Hall probably, which he looks like he's going to do. But I just think Shohei, it's something that we've never seen before. Right. You know? And that's where, there's definitely FOMO with Judge. Just because this year totally changed his kind of like his overall stats of who he is as a player, right? Like he's absolutely kind of like put his foot down and saying, you know what? I'm probably the best hitter in the game, the best power hitter in the game. Mm-hmm. And you know what? He deserves MVP over Shohei. And even though that's the case, I still think Shohei is going to do some special things. And there's something about Shohei's prices that I think there's going to be a floor with it because he's so special. He's a type of player that we're not going to see again in terms of that type of level of player, right? And I'm excited for
Underrated
Shohei.
generational
Yeah,
player.
like this, we're talking like ridiculous. And don't get me wrong, Judge is in the same way. Rarely you're going to see a 6'8" ball player that is athletic as Judge and moves the way Judge does, throws the way Judge does. And that's one thing that Judge doesn't get credit for. He's actually a pretty incredible right fielder. You know, this guy has a freaking 80 arm, like just incredible accuracy. He throws people out. He has fun out there. So there's definitely a tough kind of like boundary there. But like for me, Shohei is just too special. And, you know, even though you're right, Clark, like I wanted the pitching image. I really don't want Shohei's batting image. But then I always think of on-card Shohei autos are in super high demand. He doesn't have a first chrome auto. So those two cards are his 1 and 2. And then obviously his Topps Chrome follows suit. So those 3 on-card autos are your only option for Shohei. So I'll give it a pass in that sense. But yeah, you're right. If it was first chrome, for sure it's Shohei. But I still think it's Shohei in this case, just based on kind of like the type of player he is. It has nothing to do with Judge, and I think he's worth every single penny. But Shohei's just a different beast right now. And I'm going to pick Shohei for that reason. And John made a good point, is like at the end of the day, it's Shohei's down. It's his dip versus Judge's, you know, kind of like peak in prices right now. We don't know what's going to happen in the offseason, but it could be a better buy with Shohei in this case.
Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, I'm team batting image. I love Shohei batting images over pitching.
A lot of people do, actually. Yeah.
I can see that for sure.
Like, yeah, like I want I don't remember which one is either the US one or the 700 SSP, where looks like he's kind of hitting a foul ball, like he's looking upwards. Yeah, I want that card.
I believe
so
it's
bad.
700.
But you know what? While Hyung's looking that up, one thing I will say about Judge is like, he doesn't have to hit 700. Like I really doubt that he's going to hit the 700 home run mark based on how many home runs he has to hit for the next 10 years, like Hyung outlined. But if he hit 50 home runs in the next 2 seasons, the price is going to go up, right?
Yeah,
for sure.
And so I mean, there's potential to make profits still within a shorter timeline. You know, I'm not thinking ahead to like,
and that's the FOMO that I was talking about.
Right.
This is the reason why I'm having FOMO, is because I feel like, as special as Shohei is, if we're talking, you want to make some serious money right now, I feel like the Judge has a chance to triple from this point, which is insane.
Devil's advocate. What happens if Judge hits 30 next year? His prices hold or tank?
That's the scary part, right? Because I remember I mentioned how this is the critique of Judge from people like me, the non-Judge believers, is that he's just kind of a little bit inconsistent.
So I mean, go ahead, John.
No, I was just going to say, after his 52 home run season, you know, what kind of put him on the map? He was the rookie of the year that year. The following 2 seasons, he hit 27 each. Obviously, he was plagued with some injuries, but he still had a full season. And then he never hit 30 home runs until literally 2021, and then now 60. So just throwing that out there.
Okay, I'm gonna.
And I remember he had that like crazy strikeout streak.
I'm gonna counter that with Can you? I don't know if you have his stats in front of you, Hyung. What's his batting average? The last 3-4 seasons. You know, when he's hit the 27, 30 home runs.
So he was hitting 278 and 272 in 2018, 2019. Both seasons he had 27 after the 52. Yeah. And this year he's having obviously a really good year, hitting 314 with 60 and 128. Those are Nintendo numbers.
But look, the 257 in 2020, like you mentioned, right?
Yeah.
That was the COVID year.
Yeah.
Right. That was the COVID year. 287 in 2021. Okay. So that was a good year. And 314 this year. Why I'm kind of bringing this up is like, I think he's just a different batter now. Like he even said in interviews, and you know, like you could take it with a grain of salt, but his main goal, one of his main goals wasn't to hit 60 plus home runs. It was to hit over 300. Like he wanted to be a consistent batter. He says all his favorite players bat over 300, like
makes sense.
Have a high average. And I think he worked on that, like, you know, just from what I'm seeing, especially this season. So if, and when he started out, he had, how many strikeouts did he have? Like, he's just a completely different batter. Yeah. Than he in his rookie season when he hit the 50 plus home runs. And now just a different batter, in my opinion.
That's a fair point. And in baseball, that's the trick with many people. I will tell you, even with Vladdy, if Vladdy took that approach too, he would have, I guarantee you that's the same approach he took the year before. And Judge too, it's like a 6'8" frame. He doesn't really need to force anything. Like, because if you're thinking middle oppo, like that's what we say, middle oppo, stay inside the baseball. If you're constantly, hitting opposite field with power, that means you're staying on the ball a lot longer. You're not pulling off. You're keeping your hands in. You're able to drive the opposite way. And usually when you do that, your power numbers do increase, right? So for me, it's kind of like synonymous, and it makes sense. Like 100%. I think he has made the necessary adjustments to kind of, not continue this pace, because I think it's ridiculous for us to think that he's going to continue this. If he does, then you know what? Hats off to him. I'm even a bigger Judge fan, but we gotta like Vladdy was the same thing. It's like we're gonna see 40 plus, 50 plus every year from Vladdy.
Fair.
And he had a pretty good year, but to a lot of people, they're like disappointed. I'm like, it's been a fine year for Vladdy. It's not last year, but it's still a pretty good year, right? So I don't think Judge's numbers will be as great as they are this year. But that's all the question I had was if he hits 280 with, let's just say 35, even 40 home runs, right? And doesn't win MVP and, has a good season, will his prices sustain?
Right.
No, for sure.
Yeah, look what happened to Vladdy, right?
There's definitely a risk. Yeah.
And then going back, John, it was the US one for Shohei, that the batting image, the SSP. Yeah. Great card, by the way. Super underrated.
Great card. Yeah. Wow. Keston Hura, take note. Batting lessons. Damn it.
I'm a Keston Sapphire if anybody wants.
Me too.
No, that was a good 1v1. I like that one.
That was good. All right. We're going to go better investment, ultra modern. We're talking Goodwin Champions Exquisite Patch Autos versus the newly released Skybox Universe PMGs. Very polarizing in some of the opinions now because it's, quote unquote getting watered down, and you are sort of some people have the opinion that you're kind of killing some iconic brands, but is there investment to these cards, and which of the two is a better investment?
This one's really easy for me. Goodwin Champions as a set is meh, but the only good thing about it is the exquisite patch autos, and I think that just saves Goodwin Champions year after year. I think exquisite patch autos won't go away in terms of relevance and just people wanting to chase it in general. Whereas Skybox, it's just a gimmick. I'm just totally off PMGs. Like it was just hyped up to beyond belief, and this is just kind of like trying to monetize off something that's just been it's just oversaturated. Like the whole PMGs being the best thing since sliced bread. Like I just think it's a fad. That might be a hot take for some people, but yeah, I'm sticking with the exquisite patch autos.
I know Johnny loves his PMGs, but I agree with Clark. Like I was one of those camps that said PMGs were kind of a fad, along with a lot of other stuff like kabooms and even downtowns. You look back and people kind of forget about them, but the exquisite autos, the patch autos, just exquisite in general. Like I think it has a rich history, and even more recently, Goodwin, the 2018, like stuff like Shohei, they have super strong sales in that. And, people are actually after those cards. And because it's such a, I guess, a iconic, card design that kind of like everybody in the hobby kind of knows about. I'm gonna, it's an easy decision for me too. It's the Goodwin, and Yeah, it's not that I don't like PMGs, but the new PMGs is kind of like, I don't know if I'm completely sold on it. So I'm going to go with the exquisite patch auto for sure.
Right. It's going to be an easy sweep. I didn't actually bring this one up to be competitive. I brought it up because I wanted to kind of bash on PMGs. First point for the exquisite patch side, I think, and I hope Goodwin's like Upper Deck keeps this up. They still are very selective on who gets onto the exquisite patch auto, especially the patch auto. And I like that because it kind of keeps the mystique about it and the rarity. So they did a good job there. I really hope they don't mess that up. So that's number one. I know on the flip side, why I don't like the PMGs, kind of like you, gimmicky. And it's just, I think they just try to overprint it and just sell the heck out of it. So they just made a PMG of anybody and everybody. I feel like my 9-year-old daughter can get onto PMGs like right now. Just put her on a skateboard and she'll be on that PMG list. And I feel like it's ridiculous who they're putting it on there. So, not a fan, man. That the new release and just seeing the amount of PMGs out there and just the number of different people that are on there, it's too crazy. So it's very easy exquisite patch auto.
Nice. We're all in the same boat on that. Okay. All right. To wrap up this episode, my pick one, and this is because our group of friends in our WhatsApp chat group, our fellow collectors, kind of brought this guy up. And I don't know if I want to see who else is drinking the Kool-Aid. All right, with Zion Williamson, you guys think he's looking good, right? Fit this season. His blue Prizm rookie card, PSA 10, last sold for 9,200. Pop count's 26. That kind of surprised me a little bit. Versus Ja Morant blue Prizm rookie card, PSA 10, sold for 8,400. So almost 1,000 less, and his pop count is 63.
That's high. Yeah, that's a big difference. Normally, I would.
The blue is at
a one.
The blue is at a
199, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah.
I normally, my answer. I normally would pick Ja Morant in a heartbeat. I like Ja Morant in general as a player. Long term, I'm all over Ja, but that pop count really changes things because I'm just looking at a short-term play here because I don't know if I believe in Zion long-term, but I know a lot of people do love Zion. And this is kind of, because the pop is so low, I don't mind this move in Zion because I think, you got to remember, Zion played 2 seasons and he didn't play last year with the injury. He was 21 years old, and he's still averaging 26 in his career as a 19 and 20-year-old. So for me, it's like, I get the hype because Zion is a kid still. He has not even matured into his own body. He's still probably figuring it out because if he eats like a Big Mac, then he blows up and then, he could lose it in a second and, still a kid, right? He's still going through these, growing pains literally. And the pop count is at 26. Like, to me, that's going to sustain the price a lot. Whereas if anything happens to Ja Morant, there's a chance that blue does dip quite a bit because there's so many sellers. But I think there's just the pop count. If it was even, I probably would pick Ja. And because the price is pretty similar, the price is at both 9,000. Maybe Ja is a little under because of the pop count.
Right.
I'm going to pick Zion in this case, actually. Yeah, so I'm drinking the Kool-Aid too. So
interesting.
Wow. Oh man.
I love Ja though.
This is This is the wrong answer for me because I never pick Zion, and I'm with you, Clark. I think it's a complete trap. I don't know if I'm about to say the wrong thing here, but I'm gonna play Hyung's game here. I think if you're gonna be in this to invest, I'm
drinking the Kool-Aid.
There's just you know what it is. On a personal level, and because I like Ja Morant, I'm picking the Ja. But I think of the hype that's happening right now, if you're an investor and you're looking to take advantage, this is a great opportunity to take advantage. And the pop is lower. And perhaps it's because of the jersey match, the color, but we have seen the Blue Prizm Zion be kind of like an iconic card already. Whereas the Blue Prizm Ja has never really been anything. You know, like nobody really talks like, oh, the Blue Prizm Ja, like that's the card, that's the card. I've never heard that out of anybody's mouth. But Blue Prizm Zion, I've heard that out of many people's mouths. So in terms of like the chase card or that big grail chase of a player, Blue Prizm is one of those cards for Zion for some reason. Yeah. So I think because we're talking Blue Prizm, I think there's a big opportunity to cash in here. So I'm going to side with Zion. I can't believe I'm saying Zion. I'm going to side with Zion. I can't believe it too. I'm going to go.
Wow.
I'm going to go with Hyung, and I'm going to go with Zion. It's just because something about that Blue Prizm. I think there's something there.
I love that Prizm all the way too. That's a great card.
It's
that whole set.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to agree with you that it's a great card. Iconic image, right? Way better than the Ja Morant image. And
I do like the Ja image too. I don't mind it, to be
do
honest.
I love
I like Ja's card too.
I
like both.
I like the Ja image better than the Zion.
I know. I do like Zion though. Like that. I think Zion's card is special. Like, you know what I mean? The Prizm.
No,
not the
I think
select.
I think it's too up close. I don't need to see his arm. we could have zoomed out a little bit.
No, man, that's what makes it great. Like the close-up shot and it just full frame. Like it's amazing. Yeah. Like I'm not gonna argue with you there, but that's why it's a trap. It's so alluring that you're just that's gonna be one of the factors why you choose it, because of the iconic image. And you know, like I'm gonna look at the team too. Like the Memphis Grizzlies it's gonna be another great year for them. You know, they're just a developing team, and Ja Morant's gonna be relevant. The only thing I'm worried about is injury risk, obviously. But the same goes with Zion too, right? Like it's kind of a wash in my opinion in terms of injury risk. And the Pelicans, you know, there's optimism, but you know, everyone's going to bet the Grizzlies over the Pelicans. I think if it was cheaper than Ja Morant, despite the lower pop count, that might be more tempting for me. But since it isn't, it's a cost a bit more. It's Ja Morant. I guess I'm the only sensible one in this podcast today.
It's the pop count that gets me, you know, like the pop count, like
it's low. Yeah. I was surprised. I was really surprised. I'm not sure why it's that low, to tell you the truth, but yeah.
But the Blue Prizm is big for Zion, you know, and maybe it's that quasi jersey match, kind of like the Blue Prizm Luka, right? Like it's just one of those refractors, parallels that like that's the parallel, you know, that's the card. So yeah, I don't know.
All right, I thought this round of 1v1 was pretty good. A lot of good discussion came out of that. All right, that's the end of our episode 85. Again, thank you to all our listeners and subscribers. We appreciate all your support and encouragement, and all, you know, we read all the feedback that you guys send our way. So thank you so much. Hopefully you guys stay tuned. As we approach 100 episodes, can't believe it, we're already at 85. But we appreciate all the guys that are and girls that are listening to our podcast week after week. All right, with that, we'll see you again next week. Talk then, bye. Hey, thanks for listening to Cards to the Moon. We'd really appreciate you subscribing to our podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. And you can also connect with each of us on Instagram at 5cardguys, or you can follow Hyung at Integrity Sports Cards, or John at TradeU at Recess. You can also check us out at 5cardguys.com. Thanks again, and hope to connect soon.